one, ski.
The rippled Cascade Range stretches from California to British Columbia. As the most glaciated mountain range in the continental United States, its massive cone-shaped stratovolcanoes rising over 14,000 feet from near sea level are part of a volcanic ring extending around the Pacific Ocean. These handsome peaks are in perpetual formation, building and wearing away. As the Pacific Plate descends under the North American, a geologic activity called subduction, friction and molten rock, are created miles below the Earth's surface. When the increased pressure of the less dense heated rock combines with the stress of scraping plates, the result can be catastrophic. Mount St. Helens, May 18, 1980. A 5.1 earthquake triggered the eruption that propelled ash 14 miles skyward as 670-mile-an-hour hot gases vaporized nearby vegetation and mudslides choked rivers. The landscape was to be changed forever. The majesty of these symmetrical peaks and the timeless volcanic threat have long fascinated Native Americans, explorers, city dwellers, and mountain climbers. Sun, snow, rock, and ice. The Ring of Fire. The pioneers of Northwest skiing were the Mountaineers, a Seattle-based outdoor recreation and conservation club founded in 1906. Its members made regular trips to Mount Rainier's Paradise Lodge in the early part of the century to ski the mountain's lower flanks, while others traveled deep into the rarely explored backcountry to make daring first ski ascents of these sleeping giants. The more experienced and brave even did so in winter. A 1927 Seattle newspaper account of the first winter summit of Rainier by 3 members reported, "They made their way through snowstorms and fog by means of echoes." My brother and I had a somewhat less experimental but equally grand vision. Armed with 3,000 feet of film, a bankroll and well-used equipment, and a tentative itinerary, June was to be spent exploring, skiing, and documenting the Cascade arc of the Ring of Fire. Friends from Seattle planned to join us along the way. Growing up in the Northwest, these peaks were a constant presence, part of the culture. Climbing them seemed a natural rite of passage. By month's end, we had hoped to ski Mounts Shasta, South Sister, Bachelor, Hood, Adams, St. Helens, and in Garibaldi Provincial Park, British Columbia. Rising 14,162 feet out of the surrounding forests, bone dry from the radiant summer heat, Northern California's Mount Shasta was our first stop. This southern Cascade volcano appeared to be a strange, isolated case of frigid winter. Its sheer immensity has made it a spiritual sanctuary for Native Americans and by others who claim aliens from outer space occasionally stop by. Climbing skins attached to the bottom of our skis were used on the less steep sections. Base camp was made at an already established site perched on a protected yet rock-exposed spine. Preparations began for tomorrow, such as sharpening crampons and sorting the day's food. We woke up before the lazy sun did to good climbing. Our crampon points made a solid purchase on the angled, frozen snowpack, alluding to the exceptional skiing that lay ahead. "8 hours to the top and 1 hour down. Thousands of uninterrupted vertical feet of corn snow was an irresistible lure. This condition refers to the late-season snowpack formed by repeat cycles of freezing and thawing. After cold, clear nights, the morning sun melts the top layer of snow into a carvable, silky texture. The expansive Helens glacier made me feel like an orange speck on this otherwise paper of permanent white. Later, a moisture-laden Pacific flow that we couldn't see until it wrapped around to the east covered the brief sunset. It altered the mountain's capricious temperament. In its wake was left somewhere a treasure of gold. While South Sister in Central Oregon was on our minds, we definitely had reserved a space for the heavenly Mount Shasta. From the Cascade Lakes Highway out of Bend, Oregon, Bachelor and the three sisters, Faith, Hope, and Charity, claimed the skyline. We climbed 7,000 inaugural feet at Shasta, so before scaling South Sister, we decided to give foot-powered transportation a rest and enjoy a day of lift skiing at Mount Bachelor. Bachelor's season extends into the first part of June, with top-to-bottom skiing. It's a slow, laid-back time of year with no lift lines, reduced rates, and long days of sunshine. After listening to a geology lesson given by a Deschutes National Forest ranger, we had other plans. Day of skiing was capped by a brilliant sunset that bathed the glacier water pouring out of the Three Sisters Wilderness area. We fidgeted in our sleeping bags, anticipating tomorrow's early start up the 10,358-foot South Sister, and woke up to this for the next 3 days. The parking lot seemed to be ours. Everybody who had someplace better to go was there. Bored and frustrated, we passed time exploring a nearby field. We found inch-high frost melting under the morning sun. was likely the 4 inches of wet snow that had made soup of the mountain, but we thought a few turns could still be found. And we knew other rewards besides a ski descent were kept up there. Once on the snowfield, the last minutes of sunshine cast a warm glow on the mountainside before it slipped around the curve of the earth. From top, looking north, Middle Sister and North Sister occupied the foreground. We shared the summit with other climbers that day, but none were foolish enough to haul up skis and a 20-pound motion picture camera. But they did have imaginative ways to get down. Unfortunately, our forecast was right. The 4 inches of wet snow made skiing too ugly for the camera. Our first shutout. Continuing north, Mount Hood pierced the skyline at more than 11,000 feet. And for most of the 140-mile drive, guided us like a glow from a lighthouse. You're not alone at Mount Hood in June. Timberline on the south side remains open until Labor Day, offering the only lift-served skiing in the continental United States. Timberline's history dates back to the Roosevelt era, when it was built as part of his Works Progress administration. Its rich mountaineering and skiing legacy continues to this day. Our destination was Hood's opposite side and its aging sculptures, the Broad Elliott and Newton Clark glaciers. The starting point was near the Cloud Cap Inn. Built around the turn of the century, the inn now headquarters a respected local climbing club. From this 6,000-foot perch, Hood seemed close enough to almost touch. The monoscope revealed that a skier had recently laid precise tracks from the pointed top, adding to our enthusiasm for tomorrow's climb. Cooper Spur Trail to the summit is an emphatic ridge that anchors Hood's northeast flank. Once above the tree line, the distant sight of Mounts Adams to the right and the decapitated St. Helens to the left was nothing less than inspiring. Incredible view added some interest to the tiring, monotonous routine of making step after step after step. The downward pull of a 45-degree-plus slope requires mental agility and skill, especially when a 6-foot wide bergschrund waits below. Skis must maintain contact with the snow. Turns are compact, and arms held in front to keep square with the slope. After our trip to Hood, a sobering tragedy occurred. 2 climbers were killed in an avalanche high above the Elliott Glacier, where we had just skied. They were climbing after temperatures hovered in the upper 90s, risky conditions where snow loses its precarious bond. The common reconciliation that they died doing what they loved probably seems a hollow cliche to their relatives, and one they never wanted to see in sympathy cards. Located in Washington State's Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, Mount Adams is a broad dome 12,300 feet high and one of the more popular ski descents. Adams, like the other volcanoes, is protected by the Wilderness Act of 1964 and lies partially in the Yakima Indian Reservation.
And,
It's only 2 o'clock.
it's only 2?
Ted's skiing with a battery.
As we sorted our gear, I imagined what climbers on Adams in the 30s had to work with. Heavy wool, wooden skis, canned food, and real animal fur for climbing skins. Basic earthen tools. To simplify life is important, but modern equipment unleashes the freedom to ski challenging terrain these early mountaineers would have hesitated to attempt. Nearby Mount St. Helens is a sharp contrast to the white symmetry of Mount Adams. During its 1980 facelift, St. Helens lost more than 1,000 feet off its summit and a bulk of its north side. Lush forests of 200-foot-tall Douglas firs and other natural wonders were absorbed into an eerie moonscape, void of life. Today, the area is protected by the Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument. Hiking trails were rebuilt to minimize soil damage while giving hikers a closer look at the Earth's insides. But Helens is far from dead. New trails, roads, and buildings are only temporary fixtures. They'll be reclaimed in the next eruption as the Cascades follow their steady geologic clock. Peering into the wide crater was the beating heart of an active volcano. Otherworldly skiing on St. Helens, intermittent thick fog, bland, lifeless colors, and all the while thinking about the natural fury that engulfed this mountain in 1980. A thin coat of snow covered most of the mountain, except where wind-blown ash turned the slope brown. Long, thin arms of this ash-laden snow extended for thousands of vertical feet, Surprisingly, we discovered this gritty and unusual surface actually polished our bases smoother than any ski shop. A few days later, the ash had completely erased any sign of snow and of our tracks. By now, we were deep into logging country, and the signs were everywhere. "Eat an owl, save a logger," stated one bumper sticker. I felt like an outsider, not really part of this area or closely affected by its issues. We were here for another reason, perhaps just as alien to the driver who liked the taste of birds. After 3 weeks on the road, we stopped off in Seattle, Washington, a busy metropolitan port city laced with freshwater lakes and canals. It's guarded by Mount Rainier, the highest peak in the Cascade Range. Seattle is a city of contrasts and diversity, and also where my brother and I were born. We felt good to be home again in this vibrant and familiar place. Its reputation for coffee consumption has almost surpassed its reputation for fine seafood. So in latte land, coffee shops are found on just about every corner. We left Seattle and headed toward the snowfields in British Columbia's Garabaldi Provincial Park. The days of June were winding down, as was our trip. We had climbed and skied 6 major Northwest volcanoes, injury-free with the film to prove it. The only passage to the resort town of Whistler is through Vancouver on the winding sea-to-sky corridor. The same size as California's Yosemite, Garibaldi is considered a northern example of the same forces that created the Cascades, although the park technically lies in the Coast Mountains. We found a personal Canadian guide and an impeccable chef in Al Gray. Al lives in Whistler, teaches high school art, and coaches the local ski club. He led us to a grand alpine theater where lingering snowfields draped coal-black rock towers. And wasn't afraid to go first. end of a great couple of days in British Columbia and of an epic trip. But I felt something missing. Disbelief that it was all over. Perhaps it was all the distant, skiable volcanoes we drove past. Their wonderful steep and challenging couloirs, exposed ridgelines and fields and cornices kept secret, at least for now.